Good morning. Good news for Indian students in America who were facing the possibility of getting deported despite paying heavy fees to American universities. American universities, as you know, have started offering basically online courses. So the government had said that any student who was not attending physical classes would have to go back home. So now what's happened is that Harvard and MIT have decided to challenge the US government in a court of law, and for good reason. A large part of the money that these institutions earn is really from students like those from India. In fact, while students from many parts of the world, including America, are questioning the astronomical fees that these universities charge, Indian parents who foot the bill still tend to feel that an American education is a ticket to a great future for their children. In fact, what's amazing is not just that the universities would have been affected. What's amazing is that the American government seems to have been blind for what this was doing to the American economy. Roughly a third of all Indian students, India has about 6 lakh students who study abroad every year. Roughly a third of these go to American universities, and they spend about $5 to $6 billion a year out there in fees alone. In fact, when Prime Minister Modi had gone to America a couple of years ago, then the US government, this is not in the Indian government, the US government had put out a sort of a fact sheet which talked about the money that Indians were spending and this is for 2016. They said the money that Indians were spending in the United States when they went there for a holiday. So they spent about $13 billion there every year. And if you add the amount of money, the $5 to $6 billion that the students were spending every year in the United States, this alone supported 64,000 American jobs. Mind you, as I said, this is a statement put out by the US government, not the Indian government. And the estimates are that over a decade or so, Indian students have spent about $30 billion in the United States. So it was very, very short-sighted on the part of the government of America to come out with this rule. And hopefully with MIT and Harvard and these institutions now deciding to sue the government, there will be some rethink on what was clearly a very rash move. There's a lot of good news also for customers of HDFC Bank and SBI. There's been a rate cut, about 20 bips in the case of HDFC and between 5 to 10 bips in the case of SBI. While the Indian government banned Chinese apps, and as a result of this, a whole slew of Indian apps came up, especially to take the place of TikTok. So our story today has some sobering facts on the Indian TikTok wannabes like Raposo, Mitro, Chingari, ShareChat. So basically, just to reiterate, this newspaper had supported the ban on Chinese apps because we said unlike, raising of import duty on Chinese products or making it more difficult to get Chinese imports cleared on time, unlike that, the ban on Chinese apps actually hurt the Chinese and not the Indians. But as our story says, we've got a long way to go. Just to give you some quick numbers which are there on your television screen, about 42.5% of all smartphones today, or rather before the ban, about 42.5% of all smartphones had a TikTok app. This is data from Kalagato. And now after the ban, it's about 25 to 30% for Indian players. So all the Indian players together are collectively smaller than TikTok, but it's early days yet. So I wouldn't be too disheartened. The other piece of news here is, or the other statistic here is that users spend about 52 minutes a day on TikTok, and it's about less than half for all the Indian TikTok wannabes, right now. Again, as I said, it's early days and we shouldn't be disheartened. India, keep in mind, has developed Aadhaar, we developed UPI, we developed DigiLocker. So it's not as though that there's a dearth of talent in India. And given time, I'm certain that there'll be a lot more people on Indian TikToks and much better apps than that. In a sign of just how difficult it is to raise money, not just in India, but across the world, Singapore's Cube Highways is finding it difficult to pay the NHAI. Basically, it had bid for a 566 kilometer stretch. They had promised to pay about 5,011 crores to NHAI for tolling rights for those roads, but they have not been able to raise the money, so they haven't paid the money as yet. In fact, it is not just Cube Highways. There are some cases in the NCLT as well, where people have won bids but are unable to close the deals. Some of them, there are court cases involved, but by and large the issue is that one, the situation has changed, the demand supply situation has changed, so you may not want those companies. Secondly, it's going to be very, very difficult to raise the money. And in another interesting China story, FBI chief Christopher Wray has an interesting speech. He gave a speech yesterday where he talked about the threat posed by the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party to the economic and national security of the United States. He made it very clear he was not talking about the Chinese people, he was talking about the Chinese Communist Party and the government, and he's given several examples in that speech of Chinese nationals, stealing intellectual property in the United States. So certainly till the elections in November at least, the China-US battle has been joined, and we're going to see a lot more of this in the weeks and months to come. Sadly, despite all the criticism, including in newspapers like the Financial Express, the government seems to be going ahead with its foolish decision to ask e-commerce companies to label the country of origin on the products they sell. We've written about it in the past as well, because this has many implications which are quite disturbing. One is, how do you actually determine the country of origin when goods are made across the world and all kinds of inputs are used for inputs, which are then used for the final product. So it's very difficult to actually figure out the country of origin. Secondly, if you decide to do that, so will the government of India now unleash a complete new array of babus, an army of babus who are going to be looking at products and try to figure out whether they have been classified correctly or not, and then these companies will be taken to court, they'll be fined. I mean, that's the next wave of babudom can be unleashed with this. The third question, which is more about competition issues and a level playing field, does this apply only to online companies, or does it apply to the offline companies as well? The larger point that we've been making is that instead of trying to fix India's lack of competitiveness, which is at the heart of the problem, the politicians are just basically whipping up a nationalist fervor to distract attention. It's going to serve no purpose. If India doesn't get goods from China, they'll get them from some other country. So the Indian manufacturers will not benefit until India is made a lot more competitive, and there's not enough happening on that yet. Even more foolish, as our second editorial points out, is that after the government gave so-called autonomy to the IIMs, they're now trying to claw it back, and they're putting new kind of restrictions on some of the new courses which the IIMs have just come up with. There is some good news here. The first edit talks about it, that there is a proposal to actually modernize the Indian Penal Code and to remove certain sections from it. But I wouldn't hold my breath. Every party, whether it's the Congress or the BJP, every party has criticized the misuse of the sedition law when they have been in the opposition, but when they have been in power, they have done nothing about it yet. So don't hold your breath waiting for the IPC to change. Meanwhile, stay safe, wear your masks, observe 2 gaz ki duri, and sanitize your hands and wash them as often as you can. Thank you. Have a great day.